Looks like we got a good group in here already. Oh my gosh, we already have close to 100 people before I even start. Thanks for being here, my friends. Thanks for being here. So, anyway, tonight's topic will be more on the practical side. So, if you saw my last video was talking about the fact that Google announced changes which supposedly were privacy changes, but if you fully watched the video, then you would have realized that it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with collecting even more data while depriving third parties from collecting the data. So it's going to be just for Google. So Google will have a more fine way of collecting your data and so I want to talk about a technique that I've been using, and it's really been effective. I know it's effective because YouTube doesn't even know what videos to recommend to me. It's been recommending videos that are totally out of whack. I'm seeing even commercials for a different country, and I didn't specify that, so they are really messed up. So it must be working. It must be working. So that's why. It's something I taught you before, but I'll go through it and show you how effective it is. And what we're trying to do here, folks, what we're trying to do here is to confuse the AI. See, the AI, is based on an expectation of a normal person. So if you behave outside of the norm, the AI doesn't know what to do. So what we're going to do is teach you how to do this and really confuse the AI so their data is meaningless. And especially some of you who already have an identity on the internet, you'll be able to kind of like cancel out whatever they know about you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before I do that, let me just kind of summarize the intent of what I've been trying to teach you. And I keep repeating this, but I'll try to phrase it in a different way that hopefully most of you can understand. The problem, folks, is that when you go on the internet, Google, Apple, Facebook wants you to show your ID. So basically, you can't go on the internet now for free. You got to be ID'd. You got to show your ID. So it's like, at every gateway, you say, can I come into this internet location here? And they're going to say, this is just an analogy, of course. And they're going to say, yep, show your ID, which is your IP address, your device fingerprint, and so on. Show your ID. So everything on the internet is show your ID. And you don't even know that you're showing your ID. This is the fun part. You don't actually know that you're being asked to show your ID. You don't ask because your ID is already pasted to your back and you don't know it until you go into to YouTube, to Google, to Facebook, to Instagram and whatever, and your ID is on your back. You got a little big target in there, and so they know who you are. So without you knowing, they got you. So one of the things that's happening, yeah, papers, please. One of the things happening is that Google announced that they will stop doing, well, they're not stopping the doing of it, but they will stop third parties from doing browser fingerprinting and cookie tracking. So the trackers that people call trackers won't be able to survive on Chrome. And so people are saying, whoa, that's good. That means Google is finally appreciating the privacy issue. And so they're going to ban cookies and browser fingerprinting, which is actually a big lie. It's a sucking big lie. Okay, what they're doing is banning third parties from using browser fingerprinting and cookies, but Google doesn't get banned from anything. They could still do it, although they don't need to do browser fingerprinting anymore. So basically, Google's realized that browser fingerprinting and all of this is no longer important for several reasons. One is that many of you are blocking the trackers, the cookies, using tools like ad blockers, Privacy Badger, and techniques like that. And because you're actually already banning the cookies from collecting information, the cookies themselves are losing their effect. And the only other way to get information is through browser fingerprinting. Well, in case you didn't know this, browser fingerprinting really only affects Google and Facebook. Browser fingerprinting is not that effective for anybody else because it requires this kind of mass knowledge of your behavior on the internet, and they can only do that if you're Google and Facebook. So when Google actually says they're going to ban browser fingerprinting, there's very little effect of that, especially to themselves, because they have alternate ways of getting the same information. And the way they do it, guys, is through device fingerprinting. So yes, they can sacrifice browser fingerprinting because you have your phone. And from your phone, they can, so from your phone, they're tracking you. Now, you can't be tracked with this. This is a de-Googled phone. This has no Google. So this becomes ultra important. This is now more important than ever because Google's now relying on this to be your primary identification. And I am so happy because there's no Google in here. There's no Google ID. There's no device fingerprint. There's nothing. I've never logged into the phone. So this is basically making me invisible on the phone side to Google. So if you start changing everyone's phone in your family, you basically disappear. Now, what we're going to talk about tonight is a technique so that you don't just disappear. So here's the problem, folks. You already have an identity. You already have data out there that's been collected by Google. For example, if you are using your real name, let's say, anybody here using their real name? I can't find anybody. You're all getting too smart now. Oh, Mr. H. Oh my gosh. Mr. H is still using his real name. Okay. So let's say you're using your real name on the internet. So Google is tracking you by your real identity, and if you have a phone, they're tracking that as well on there. If you're in a browser, they match all that and can identify connections between different accounts on phones. This is a science to them to match your behavior on a phone, on a computer, through IP address, through device fingerprints, all this. This is stuff that they use. So whatever you do on this is being tracked, and then that now becomes part of this new database of super tracking, which they now call federated learning of cohorts, FLOC, federated learning of cohorts. So if let's say you're conservative, they will partition you into a group of conservatives. So you'll now be part of a cohort of conservatives. And then from that, they may say these are Trump supporters. These are, just general conservatives, but not necessarily Trump supporters. They can actually hone it down. These are the Trump supporters who are anti-vaccination. These are, they can hone it down to that level. It's really crazy what they can do. And then even on the liberal side, then they can say, not only are you a liberal, they will actually be able to say, oh, this one supports Antifa and this one supports BLM, and in a very, very fine way, and then create cohorts of this. And I don't know about you, but the idea of being placed in a cohort where somebody can manipulate the internet to influence behaviors of a cohort is really a scary thing in my mind. It's a very, very scary concept. I don't want to be known and be placed in a cohort of any group. I do not want that. So how do you get around that, folks? Well, fortunately, their AI is pretty stupid. So if you follow what I'm going to teach you, this is going to be really, really fun. So do this with your account with a real name, a Google account, logged in. So in my case, I when I use a browser, my computer, I have two or more browsers, usually three, but at the very least use two. So I have two browsers. I'm not on Facebook, otherwise I'd have a third browser. So I have two browsers on at all times. Actually, I always have three, and I'll tell you how I use it. So browser number one is Chrome. So some of you are saying, I'm not going to use Chrome. Some of you here, I know, hate anything Google, so you're not going to use Chrome. But no, use Chrome. It is important that you use Chrome, because what we're going to do is feed this information to Google. So give it to them on their platform where you know they're going to spy on you. Give it to them. Give it to them. So you're going to use Chrome. This is on one browser. And you're going to use your normal, whatever account that you've used on Google for a long time, which may have your real name, maybe not, maybe it is. If you have a lot of history with your real name, then use that on Chrome. Log in to Google. This is very important. Log in to Google on Chrome. So now you're going to do everything. You're going to go do search. You're going to do YouTube. You're going to do all that on this Chrome. Now, when I'm not doing something related to Google, I do not do it on Chrome. If I'm going to go to Amazon, if I'm going to go do some other website, if I'm going to go search something on the internet, I'm going to use DuckDuckGo, and I'm going to do it on another browser. So in my case, I set up three browsers. I use Chrome, Brave, and Firefox. Choose any two other browsers you want to use. Some of you don't like Firefox anymore, so don't use Firefox. It doesn't matter. Okay, I use Brave for one, and I use Firefox for the other. So it doesn't matter which one you use, as long as you use Chrome. This is very important, guys. Use Chrome. Okay, now, when I'm on Chrome, I make sure I am logged in to Google. So I don't want to do YouTube not logged in. No. Logged in, put in your subscriptions, all of that. And now, this is the part that you need to do on Chrome. You need to do opposite day. Opposite day, folks. Whatever you normally do, you do exactly the opposite on Chrome. You do it at least once a day, maybe more. Let's just say that you're a conservative, and Google knows that about you, and you don't want them to know that you're conservative. How do you handle that? Well, easy. You go on Chrome and you do your nonsense Google, YouTube searches and all that you usually do. And then while logged in, this is important. You have to be logged in so that you're giving them the data. And then you actually start clicking on the opposite of what you believe. So if you're conservative, click on liberal videos on YouTube. If you are usually watching Fox News, let's say, you go and watch CNN. And you put this in your favorites list. You click on it once a day. And just keep doing that. And I'm going to tell you, it works. It works. After a while, it takes a while, but then Google gets trained that something changed about you. Oh, wow, they won. They changed your opinion about something, because now they will actually think, whatever you're clicking on Chrome is actually what you believe. So this is essential to screwing up the AI. Now, let's say you really want to watch something on YouTube that, in this example, you're conservative and you want to watch something conservative. Then you set up another browser, in which case, in my case, I use Brave. So on Brave, then, if you're going to watch some conservative thing on YouTube, for example, then you're going to go do it on Brave, not logged in. And so this is my scheme. Chrome for anything that I want Google to know. By the way, I run my channel also, like my channel, when I'm doing things with my channel, I do it on Chrome. So they have a good idea then of what I believe, what I want them to believe I believe, so that they, they think I'm a conformist. So that's what I do on the Chrome side. If I want to check something else out, let's say I want to look at gun videos. I would never click on a gun video. Let's say, again, it depends on what image you want to project. So in my case, let's say I'm a conservative, let's say, and I go on Chrome. I would never click on a gun video there, even if they offer it on the list. I would never click on it. Then I go to Brave, that's when you would click on the gun videos, because you're not logged in, and I isolate that, and I don't use it with anything else, and I never log into it, and I don't do anything else on it but what I call private Google that, I want to use Google but no identity. Then I use the third browser for everything else. I don't have to worry about the third browser. I can go to Amazon, but never Google. So on the third browser, I never go to Google. That's very important. Very, very important. The reason is, if you go to Google on the third browser, now they will link the identity to the first browser. You'll screw it up. You do not do anything on the third browser. Nothing Google ever. I would never go to YouTube, nothing. So if you do this, what I'm saying here, you're still able to, search on YouTube and do all that on my research account, which will be what I'm going to consider Brave, and then my Chrome account is whatever I want Google to think. So every day, if you're conservative, you click on CNN every day on that. Now you might say, I can't stand it. I can't. A lot of you are so tied up with your belief that you cannot even click on an opposing viewpoint. It's actually very educational to do. So if it's the opposite of what you believe, it's very educational to actually click on it, because you actually see what I see, and that is, I feel like, if you just comparing like Fox News versus CNN, they're like different worlds. Like what one channel is talking about is exactly the opposite of what the other one channel. In fact, they have different topics. It's almost like they're in different worlds. So they have different agendas. They're trying to tell you different things. It is really interesting to see. It really is. I have to tell you, you ought to learn from that, because then when you actually see news coming out of two different extreme organizations, you will actually realize how much fake news is on both sides. Fake news on both sides, and you'll actually start to see that, and I appreciate it even more. No wonder I don't watch any of that. To be honest, I don't believe anything. So that's the way to do it. Just opposite day. Again, I used the example of I'm conservative, and then I'm going to use this example. If you're on the opposite side, just reverse it. It doesn't really matter. What the end result is that the AI will now be confused as far as what you are, and will actually assign you to the wrong cohort. Okay? Thank you, PA3DZN. Thank you so much. You will be assigned to the wrong cohort, and that is really what you want to do. You want to be assigned to the wrong cohort. And if they do assign you to the wrong cohort there, at some point they're going to give up and say, well, we don't really know what this person believes, so we can't really convince him or her of anything, and we might as well not do anything, because we'll put him in a bucket of unknown opinion. And this is just, so it must have worked, because Google is so confused about what I believe and what it's trying to feed me. I get really concerned if I go to YouTube and it feeds me something that I am really interested in. That bothers me. If it's feeding I want to see, then I'm in trouble. So the key is that it feeds you things that you are not associated with normally, And in my case, it actually started sending me ads from different countries. I don't even know why it decided to give me ads from different countries. I think I've seen ads from 3 different countries now. And so I must have really confused the AI. I must have really done a good job of confusing the AI. And that's why I'm recommending that this when we do this. Now, this is not just, there's a couple things you got to do here. Couple things. Oh, I'm buffering. Oh, am I? Uh-oh. Did I lose the voice or just buffered the video? I got a little error message here from Google, from YouTube, but the feed is okay. I mean, I'm getting a lot of bandwidth through here. Such a waste of time. When do you have to understand who your opposition is? It is not so much. It's not that difficult. You do 1 click a day. You just do a favorite. If you're gonna click on CNN every day, I mean, 1 click. You don't actually have to go read anything. Just click it once a day, and that's good enough. Okay? Just click it once a day. Normally, if it's opposite of your belief, you're going to be like really angry about clicking anything like that. But hey, you really need to understand the opposition. So you have to, think opposite of what you believe. See what's being said, and it will kind of give you a good picture. When you do that, you actually are not in a bubble. You actually realize that how extreme is on the messaging on either side to try to convince you of something that you don't believe in. And I see a lot of this, fact checking, and they always say fact checked, and then they say, so and so lied, Trump lied, this that, and then you actually sit on the other side and you said, who's doing that fact check? And then you start to see the misbalance in the news on either direction. And it's very, very educational. I know it's a lot of work, but that's part of what privacy does. Computers are, you have to understand how the computers work. This is based on simply on the assumption of what a normal person would do. So the moment you behave in a way that would be inconsistent with what a normal person does, the AI doesn't know how to handle that, because they're not trained enough to know this kind of subtlety of behavior like what I'm doing. I mean, how many people do what I do? And it's been working. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but I've refined it over the years. But this is called disinformation. It's really, really effective, really, really effective. So again, whatever your side is, if you're on the left, then go to Fox News. Just reverse, opposite day. Okay. So, and then you will realize. Okay, coming back. Okay, hold on. Okay, there we go. I lost the internet for momentarily there. I was just looking at my video and I noticed that I wasn't moving on the video. Okay, so internet went down, and I hope that's just a short-term thing here. Okay, are we good? I'll just wait for acknowledgement that everything is fine. There's a little bit of a delay. Yeah, there's a delay in when I came back. Okay, so I hope you learned from that. I hope you learned from that technique. I hope you didn't miss too much of what I said. No, the internet shut down over here. Nothing on that end. My actual. In fact, it's happening again here. My Wi-Fi. It's like somebody must have be using the microwave. Typically, that happens, like microwave use. Let me just see if it's. I mean, it's transmitting, but the Wi-Fi signal is very low. So, okay. Hopefully, you didn't miss much. Okay, working at present. Okay, so I think we should be okay momentarily here. Now, this video, by the way, is sponsored by Linode. So if you are interested in setting up a server on Linode, it's one of the best cloud server providers that I know of. Wait, you are streaming over Wi-Fi? What the zuck? Okay. So I'm back, right? I just want to make sure. Okay, so anyway, Linode has been my go-to source for cloud servers. They specialize in Linux servers, and they've been around a long time, even before Amazon AWS, and they've just been treating me so well as a client. I have many of my own servers on Linode, and they've really shown to me that among all the companies that I deal with a lot of data centers, and of all of them, Linode has been the best support, the best service, and just the nicest people ever. And so I'm so happy to be having them as a sponsor. They've been sponsoring me since last summer when I was just a small channel. So that's really very cool. So anyway, if you go to Linode and use linode.com/Rob Braxman as shown there, they will give you $100 credit that you can use within 2 months for like servers. And some of their servers are very inexpensive. You can set up a server for as cheap as $5 a month. So you can build a website for $5 a month and you can control it completely. So it's not a bad deal. So linode.com/Rob Braxman. Now let me do Q&A now, and I just want to reinforce what I've been saying about the Google changes. I'll make another video to show you. As I mentioned in my last video, they've actually bought Fitbit. And if you don't understand the implications of Fitbit, I'll make sure you understand that, it's more extreme changes, and most people are saying, oh, Google's for privacy. We don't have to worry about that. They promised the EU that they're not going to use Fitbit to do advertising. They don't need to do advertising using Fitbit data. What Fitbit data is, folks, just to make sure you understand, Fitbit is biometrics. Fitbit is biometrics. Can you imagine going on your phone and using a different Google ID? Let's just say you use a different Google ID on your phone and you're playing around and you say, well, I'm gonna make sure that Google doesn't know my identity by using, a different Gmail account and change my Google ID and so on. But then you're using Fitbit. So what happens then? Well, if you're using Fitbit, then they can match the biometrics and say you're the same zucking person. It's another version of identity management, another version of saying, I want to know who you are, I want to chip you, and Fitbit is another way of chipping you in a way that you can't hide, just like you do with fingerprints and so on. It will make sure that they identify who you are. Now, why is that important? It means you can't go on the phone and hide your identity. It doesn't matter that you go on Instagram with a different identity and a Google property like YouTube with a different identity. If you're using a Google phone, then you're identified. They know who you are. They know the IMEI, the MZ, and all the different identifiers on the phone, and they can match it to your biometrics. So they don't need to know all this browsing fingerprinting BS. They don't need to know that because you have just chipped yourself. You have chipped yourself. And the purpose of my teaching you today how to recover from that by sending this information is knowing that they chipped you using Android. You can actually make the data so useless that they will dump you anyway. And that's what I was teaching you right now. But the best way to do it is to simply not be on all of these trackers that actually do fingerprinting. So you cannot get fingerprinted on a de-Googled phone. You cannot get fingerprinted by biometrics if you don't use Fitbit. So I don't know what it is about the cool crowd. You got to be cool. You got to use Fitbit. And, it's like, I'm going to stay on the non-cool side. I mean, there's so many gadgets I can use. Do I really need Google to know my biometrics? I mean, goodness, get another device and attach it to your leg. Just don't attach it to Google. I'm not telling you to, not use the latest technology, but why use cloud-based technology that's being collected by somebody? So why does Google not care that Fitbit is banned by the EU from using that data for advertising? Well, it doesn't matter. They don't need to use it for advertising because the only purpose of Fitbit is biometric identification that can then be used to place you in a federated learning of cohort, flock, FLOC. That's all they're trying to do is say, what cohorts do you believe in? What do you fall in? So they'll trap you in that circle and you say, oh, you must be a Trump supporter. We're going to put you in that block. Oh, you must be, In fact, even by your comments here, they'll do that. So that's why, the idea of using more of these things that Google is buying up. For one thing, you say, well, Google doesn't wants to track you, of course, and it doesn't want any technology that will not track you. So one of the biggest competitors to Google happens to be KaiOS, KAIOS. Now, KaiOS is not significant in the USA. Hardly anyone uses KaiOS in the US. But it's big in India. It's big in a lot of third world countries use KaiOS because it's a cheap phone. You can get a phone for $20 or less. And KaiOS is not a Google Android OS. Well, in case you didn't know, Google made sure that you are captured there. So KaiOS is has an investment from Google. So in fact, KaiOS has YouTube and all that built in to Google search, and YouTube is built into KaiOS. So they're going to track you on KaiOS. So they're trying to make sure that there are no loopholes in this world so that the majority of people will be captured. Now, at some point, they may not like the Google phones. At some point. But as of the moment, how many of us are using this? There's not very many. So we're not yet in the crosshairs of the enemy, but at some point they will stop us, and we have to go Linux phones or something. So hopefully Linux phones start to mature so that we can actually evade even the choices that Google may try to limit. So if Google tries to limit Android AOSP in some way, we need some way of escaping. So at the moment, I hopefully will have some more Linux options, and we can use Linux phones, or at least some sort of dumb phone. We can't even do dumb phones, guys. I mean, you go to your carrier and they don't even let you use a dumb phone. They always want data because they say, well, we don't make money if you don't use data. So, it's very difficult to even use a dumb phone. And I think it's intentional because they want to make sure they make money from the data. And the disadvantage, of course, is we can't even use, dumb phones secondarily just for phoning and then use something else for internet access. We can't even do that. And, they're trying to narrow our choices so we're really captured and we're stuck. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, I'm just going to make sure you understand this. When you do what I was suggesting about doing disinformation on Google using Chrome, you have to go to Google Activity Control. This is very important, folks. I forgot to mention this. You have to go to Google Activity Control. So just Google that, Google Activity Controls, and you have to pause all of the tracking. You have to pause it. But even then, even if I pause the tracking, I don't believe Google saying that they're not going to track me. So I pause the tracking. So in theory, they're not going to track me anymore, but I don't believe them. That's why I still do the extra step. And it's apparently working when I get the wrong recommendation. If I see the wrong kind of ads, if I see the wrong kind of recommendations, then it must be working. It, like I said, it couldn't even figure out what country you're using. Gmail is done on a different device, so on a email client. So that's not really part of this. Yeah, Gmail obviously will be able to track you in some way. So if you have Gmail attached to the identity you want to change, you have to worry about that. So just to give you an example of a common mistake, you're on YouTube, right? And you did the disinformation thing I was just teaching you a moment ago, and you actually start doing opposite day, and you go to the opposite websites. So if you're conservative, you start going to CNN. But then you forgot about Gmail, and it's attached to the same ID, and then it knows you're getting mailers from all of these conservative groups that you subscribe to, and you're getting all the email from that. Well, you're going to be zucked. That's why I do not do don't sign up for anything, folks. It's one of the lessons you got to learn is to do not sign up to anything that identifies you in any kind of a way. So if I had to deal with that, then I'm gonna have to abandon that Gmail account and start a new one, because that's too much. If you have a lot of email in there with Gmail and it has too much of your data, you're not going to be able to do disinformation on that. There's going to be some limit. You can put email on the phone. That's not really material, because in my case, I use K9. I don't use. There's no Google app in here. So the email app that we use is K9 from F-Droid. So, and you can use Google, and I actually use a Gmail account on this, which just happens to be my unimportant Gmail account. That's what I use on my phone. I just want to have a way of using something, but it's not. I use it for sending files and photos back and forth, and it's not what I usually use as my normal email. I don't put my normal. In my case, my email, my main email is on my own domain. So I don't put that on the phone. So I don't want anything identifying the phone with anything like that. Otherwise, you're going to be zucked. Does K9 encrypt email? Email is not encrypted, so don't even think of that. What makes you think email is encrypted? Since email is visible to Google and visible to anyone else, the idea is use email in a way that confuses them about your identity. So have many Gmails. Like I have many Gmail accounts. I've actually, some of them I don't use anymore, but I have quite a few. I must use at least 5 of them, like really actively, and mostly for nonsense things. So let's say logging into social media, I have a Gmail for that. So, but if I'm going to do something serious, then I use my own domain. Okay, so I don't use Gmail for anything serious. So if you already have a Gmail that has an identity with your real name on it, then you should start weaning yourself out of that, so that you start to look like you're inactive. So if they don't see much activity on the account, they'll think you abandon the account, and then their data will be, after a while, will be out of date. In which case, then you won't be of value. They won't be able to track you. They won't be able to put you in a federated learning of cohort. Why not just feed Gmail disinformation? Of course you could, but you don't have the discipline. Can you feed your Gmail disinformation? Are you able to do that? I mean, that's even more work than clicking on CNN. Rob, give your real phone number to many people, true or false? I do not. I've explained this in my videos. The way I do it is my phone number is known to family, and then the rest I give my Google Voice number. And and I never call anyone. So Proton Mail is not the same as K9. K9 is a client. Proton Mail is an email service. K9 is not an email service. It's just a client. So you can run Proton Mail, Gmail, whatever on K9. K9 is just an app. So is it okay to give your phone number to many people? No. Do you recommend using a browser isolation on a Google phone? Yes. What about a satellite phone? Which satellite? There are good things and bad things about satellite phones. Okay, what is good about a satellite phone? The good news about a satellite phone is that the sensor data may not exist. If you get a plain phone that is just a phone, it doesn't have sensors, then they can't capture the sensor data from the phone, which will be used for device fingerprinting. Okay, so that's the good news. The problem is, for active surveillance, a satellite is actually centralized. So for example, if you're with Iridium, then and a third party like a government wants to track you and listen to all of your phone conversations and texting, they just need to go to San Diego and tap into the main database, and everybody in Iridium will be centralized to the same satellite signal, and all of the data will be centralized at the Iridium office in San Diego. So it's like plus and minus. But a satellite phone typically has very little data. It's very little phone use. And so aside from the fact that it's expensive, there isn't much in there. So yeah, I guess that could be a plus. What is K9? K9 is just an app on Android. So you can find K9 on F-Droid. So we install K9 by default on a Google phone. It's what email client we give you. So because there's no Google Gmail. What is the best cloud for snapshots? I teach you, of course, how to use Linode with Nextcloud. But to be honest with you, you kind of have to shift your thought process. What we've done is, when we give you a Google phone, for example, it's made so that you can plug in USB-C into the phone, plug it into your computer, and you can see all your pictures and just drag them over. That's what I do. I just drag my pictures. So I don't need to put pictures on the phone. I can remove them, put them on my computer. I don't need cloud for that. It is so simple because we already set the phone to do that. So you take any phone, plug it in, drag your photos out every so often, and you're done. And you don't need cloud anything. So so that's why you don't really need to do that. Do I like Zorin OS? No. You know why I don't like it? It looks like Windows. K9. Yes, that's the name of the app. K9. Yes, you can send K9. I use Gmail on K9. Many debating how to store contacts. You can share contacts on Nextcloud if you set up your own Nextcloud server, but contacts are just exported as VCF files. instructions on the internet on how to export your contacts as a VCF. So I went to my old iPhone. I exported my data as a VCF file. I emailed it and then captured the VCF file, transferred it by USB to my Android, AOSP Android, my Google phone, and I click on it and it imports the contacts. Done. VCF. It's a standard format for contacts. And iPhones, Androids, all can do VCF. Okay? Do you think we lost the Turing test? Who, you? Are you a robot? Okay, so let's see. Is Brave a good browser? It's not a matter of what's a good browser or not. You need to use several browsers. The idea is to use several browsers, not caring what the browser is. So like I said, I use Chrome specifically for Google. So if I'm going to run my channel is run on Chrome because I want Google to know what I want them to know. See, that's important. You don't want Google to know what you don't want them to know. You want them to know what you do want them to know. And the way to do that is by logging in. So I'm logged into my channel account. So if I'm logged in, then I'm going to tell them what I'm like. I'm going to describe my personality by what I watch on my account. And then I use Brave for my other stuff that I watch on YouTube. And then I don't have to worry because I never log in on Brave. And then my third browser never logs in, never goes into any Google whatsoever. No YouTube, no Gmail, nothing. No Google on the third browser. Google Calendar alternative. Again, Nextcloud. I have a video on Nextcloud. Now, what I'd like to teach you at some point is how to make Nextcloud for your house. It's not simple, and the reason is, how do you know the IP address of your Nextcloud machine? So I was going to say, why don't we set up Nextcloud on a Raspberry Pi, which you could in theory do that, but it's just not it's not that simple. So I've been thinking about how to do that, and if we can, then you can use Nextcloud when you're at home and share with your family. But there are alternatives. Like I said, just plug in the USB, transfer to your computer. That's really what I recommend for most of us. Kind of like the old days. Should we sign into Google in Chrome on the phone? Yeah, if you're going to do Google and do disinformation for Google, obviously you want Google to know what you want them to know. You don't want Google to guess your ID. So if you're on the phone and you don't and you want Google to know what you're thinking, then yes, use Chrome and log in. Now, there's no Chrome on a Google phone. So on a Google phone, you have to use Chromium if you're going to do that. So on my Google phone, we usually run DuckDuckGo. So I try to keep it simple. I do the Google disinformation on a computer, not on my phone. So I don't really go Google anything on the phone at all. But I want to make sure Google has information about me, and I do that on a computer versus mobile. Why is anybody watching anything else? Do I have this right? Use Chrome to explore things you don't like. Use Safari for basic information. Searching. Use DuckDuckGo for personal. Put Brave on there. If you're on a Mac, yeah, Safari would be a very good option as well. So let's say you're on a Mac, you might go, Chrome, Safari, and Brave. That's a good option on a Mac. Yeah, I like that. That'll work. You can skip Firefox if you want on a Mac. You just need at least 3. You're a 60-year-old housewife. Hello. Would you like to be in Spanish? I can, of course, pay someone to close caption my videos, and I haven't done that because I didn't know if anyone would be interested. But yeah, I guess I can just close caption the videos. It's just a paid service. It's not expensive, and then it will be uh, transcribed. What I do not like is for somebody to take my video and move it to a different channel, because then they'll get ad revenue instead of me getting the revenue on my channel. And obviously, uh, it affects our income here, because that's what we live on, is the revenue from this channel. You should pay someone to read the comments. Well, it doesn't matter if somebody reads the comments. I can only respond to a few. Back in the day, I would read every comment and respond to every single one, but it's really, really messy that way. Use this in DuckDuckGo for better search results. LG use this in... LG is a phone. I'm so confused. Check out LibreWolf browser. It doesn't really matter what browser you use. It's and anyone can make a browser. You just you basically fork a project like Chromium, and you make a slight modification and call it something else. It doesn't mean it's a different browser. So that's really overkill, and I don't really want to waste time doing that, because the idea is multiple browsers. Multiple browsers. So that's my preferences, multiple browsers. And at some point in the next couple of years, maybe no one will want to use a browser anymore, because they can't track you in the browser. So at the moment, Google is still tracking us on the browser, so might as well give them the disinformation now. A couple of years from now, it'll be different. They may rely solely on device fingerprints. So we need to react, and the main reaction is, guys, get a the Google phone. My goodness, if they're relying more, Google is relying more on tracking us on the phone. So what is the only defense? That it seems to be accelerated in importance, and the acceleration in importance is that the Google phone is awesome. They don't know anything. This is like using a browser on a computer. There's no identity, nothing on here, nothing whatsoever. So this is like, getting to be an even more important option. Google intends, this is the way that they're working right now. They want to make sure VPNs lose importance. So they're doing something called IP blindness and things that will lessen the importance of a VPN. And I don't know how that's gonna go, but the Google phone is still a best option. Let me talk to you, and I'm gonna talk about it in another video, so that you understand kind of the dangers of what Google is up to, and why you have to really take anything they say with a grain of salt. Okay, so some of you have come to me and looked at some of my videos on DNS over HTTPS, or DOH. And they say, well, Google is caring about our privacy because they want to encrypt DNS. And some many dumb technical people, yes, dumb technical people have said, yeah, this is good. Let's encrypt DNS. DNS is when we're searching for a domain. Let's say you're searching for youtube.com, then the domain has to be searched for on a DNS server, and that DNS server will then give you the actual IP address attached to youtube.com. Since on the internet we can only go to a website by IP address. The domain is just a temporary placeholder. So people have learned that you can capture data from the domain. So think about it. A domain provider will know who goes to CNN.com and who goes to FoxNews.com. That alone, can you imagine just that alone, that you can actually, stratified the U.S. society by saying who goes to CNN.com, who goes to FoxNews.com, and it will identify these people and then treat them differently and give them different search results based on the pattern of CNN.com versus FoxNews.com. And even worse if you go some of the other more boutique sites that are even more more of an identifier. So if you want to avoid that, then you need to understand what DOH is and why it's such an example of how Google will fake the news, and then you actually believe that they're doing something for your own good. Thank you, Gonzo. I believe Google will still work. I think some people have used Google Fiber for the phone and it still works fine. So yeah, I believe it still works. So let me specifically give you the DNS over HTTPS issue, because that is and I'm going to do a video so you can I can explain it to you a little bit in a shorter way. So the idea is that Google says, hey, let's encrypt your DNS so that third parties don't get to see your DNS queries. It's almost exactly what they're doing here with blocking browser fingerprinting. They don't want third parties to fingerprint you. So they say, let's encrypt your DNS so then third parties don't capture your DNS. And by the same token, let's hide and stop browser fingerprinting so third parties can't fingerprint you. But what is the actual end result of this? This is the total lie, guys. Total lie. Okay? So what happens is on your Android, go check Android, and there's an option on Android 9 and 10. And if you go on here, the option is called in advanced. So you go network, internet, advanced. And the option is called private DNS. Okay, and you have the option there, off, automatic, or private DNS provider, private enter host name, private DNS provider host name. So by default, it's set to automatic. So if you don't know anything about this, you get a Google phone, a standard Android. Your private DNS, you don't know what it is, it's set to automatic. Automatic means that your DNS is encrypted and it goes to Google. That means that nowadays, probably 99% of the people leave it alone, and they're sending all of their DNS encrypted supposedly, but they're sending it to Google. Meaning the end result is that most of us are being tracked by DNS. Now, I don't do that. When we ship the phones, we set the private DNS to off. Same as before. I don't want it encrypted. I don't want it, I don't want it centralized. So the idea that what Google's doing is centralizing the DNS information. This is another one of these tricks where they make it sound like they're doing it for your privacy, but in essence, they are centralizing the data. It's the same thing that's happening with device fingerprinting, same thing that's happening with cookie blocking. They only block third parties, but they're still collecting the data in a finer way by saying, hey, you have to go to Google. Google will be the only source for everything. Google will be the only source for your fitness apps and fitness tracking and all that. Google will be your only source for DNA information. Google will be your only source for DNS. Google will be your only source for search and so on. So they want to make sure that they track everything you do, and it's increasing the amount of data they capture to the precise identity of each and every one of us that can now be assigned to a federated learning of cohort. So the end result is that if you don't take the precautions here, you will end up in a cohort, probably 1,000 cohorts that you'll be in a cohort of your personality. So if you happen to be outgoing, they'll say this is an outgoing conservative, uh, vocal, uh, you know, guy that likes guns, and I mean they'll have a very very specific bucket for every single person, in the world, and people are like saying, "Well, who cares? It doesn't hurt me." It's like, Zuck, people. I don't want to be identified to be in a cohort. What OS are you using? I'm using Lineage OS on my phone. What apps do you use? You go to Brax.me. It's all listed. Your entire life will be cohorted. Your entire life will be categorized by cohort. Oh, they took away the "don't be evil" label. So they're evil now. They used to say "don't be evil." They don't say that anymore. And the reason is they actually, said, well, let's not be evil, but let's support all the censorship by the CCP in China. So we want to help China be, do more censorship. So it's like, okay, crazy. Doesn't Lineage OS have open? Who cares? IR, don't fall for that BS. Don't fall for that BS. Okay, Lineage OS is what I use. Is fine. Could I use something else? Yeah, I probably could. But for what I use it for, privacy purposes, I use Lineage OS, and it's fine. So if you're going to hear from other people, why they're going to put down Lineage OS and say you got to use this, you got to use that, fake news, fake news. Yeah, there may be moments when you want to use some other OS if depending on your job, but for normal people, Lineage OS is just fine. I use Lineage OS. I haven't found a reason to find a problem with Lineage OS. And yeah, I've heard arguments about the bootloader and all that, and it's like, you must not know how this works. Okay, so how many phones have I de-googled? I can't even tell you. It's got to be in the thousands by now. Okay, I've done this thousands of times. Okay, now I've done it thousands of times, and if I knew there was a danger with your bootloader, why would I give it to you? So no, there is no danger to your privacy, regardless of what the bootloader does. Is public Wi-Fi with VPN? Say public Wi-Fi is not safe without a VPN. VPN makes public Wi-Fi safe. Yeah, if you're in a public Wi-Fi and use a VPN, it's safe. Okay, so let me see. Thoughts on Microsoft Exchange being hacked by China? I don't use Microsoft Exchange, so I don't use Microsoft Exchange. There's your answer. Hacking is a little different problem, than privacy. That's I want to make the distinction that there's cybersecurity and there's privacy. Corporations can deal with the cybersecurity side. You as individuals could be concerned about the privacy side. Let the corporations handle the cybersecurity side. So if you are concerned about hacking and all that, then that's what IT in those companies have to worry about, and that's beyond what a normal person has to worry about. Nobody cares about the individual privacy. In fact, in a corporation, they spy on your traffic. So the corporation spies on you because they don't care about your privacy. So they're only concerned about cybersecurity. They don't want you to do anything in the office or on an office network that they don't know about. So they capture all your data and know basically what you do. So when you're in an office system, you don't do anything bad because they will have a record of that. and they'll use it against you for your employment and all that. So yes, in the corporate environment, they can do that, and so you don't want to give them anything other than the fact that you're only using their network for work. Do not do Huawei. I mean, no. Huawei is not, this is not an open OS. So this Harmony OS is not open. It's the bootloader is locked. So you can't even investigate in there and see what's on there. They could have put anything on there. And so why? Why do that when we can take even some of the other Chinese phones like Motorola and install a completely different OS that we know what's on there and override whatever they put on there. And then even though it's, made in China, well, all phones are made in China, then it will still be safer because we put our stuff over it from a known source with known source code. In the case of Huawei, you don't have that input because somebody else did it for you and then locked up the phone. So no sucking Huawei for me. They locked up the bootloader. Now, if you could take a Huawei phone and unlock the bootloader and load standard AOSP on it, then it would be something to think about. But at the moment, that's not the option. So Huawei is not a good choice. No, it is not. It's not a free phone. It's not the same as a Android AOSP like I have here. The Google phone has nothing. There's no entity in here. Even though this phone is made, I'm trying to remember who makes Pixel 4s. Is that LG? I actually don't know who makes a Pixel 4. But let's say it's LG, like, Nexus 5 made by LG. So if LG made the phone, some of you can tell me who actually made this, but whoever made the phone, we override it. We take the Google stuff out and we put AOSP on it. We know the source. We know the source code. We know everything because you can go to Android open source project and look at the source code, and it's compiled from that source, so no one can screw that up. So you know exactly what's on here other than what is called an OEM area. There's an OEM area here which has the drivers put in by the manufacturer. But at least all the standard stuff aren't going to be manipulated. So you can when you put Lineage OS on here, you basically are starting from open source. Okay, so it's a known thing. Other phones are not. Talk about the trusted execution environment. That trusted execution environment in what context? That's more of an antivirus. That's one of the reasons I don't use an antivirus. That's one of the reasons I don't use an antivirus. Because they're actually executing in kernel space. But that's not our topic tonight. They have handheld drones with pistols already. Pixel 4 is made by Foxconn. Oh, they're not made by LG? Meaning it's not branded? Is it actually manufactured by Google itself on Foxconn? Where is the moderator? What am I missing here? Is somebody causing trouble here that I don't know about? Is it possible to have a Netflix app on a Google? I have Netflix on my phone. My phone has Netflix, Kindle, and Spotify. So life moves on. You don't have to feel like you're a Luddite. I mean, I do have these common things. Most apps will work. The apps that you're going to have problems with are the apps that take payment. So used to be Uber worked, and now Uber doesn't work anymore. But I believe you can still go to the website. What do you think about the advertisers would brave that and search engine? The coin has gone up. I don't really have any thoughts on that. I don't think there's a problem with it. How secure is the BlackBerry key? I don't even know what a BlackBerry key is. What is a BlackBerry key? Is that a device or a phone? I don't know what that is. I mean, why would you even talk about BlackBerry now? BlackBerry is no longer. BlackBerry is a brand that's now taken over by a Chinese company. What's TC something? Okay, BlackBerry is a Chinese company now. Kind of like Lenovo. Lenovo is a Chinese company, in case you didn't know. Lenovo, of course, came from IBM. Bought the IBM business. So the old ThinkPads, the business computers, were ThinkPads, and that's now a Lenovo brand. And they did a good job with that. But just so you know, Lenovo is actually still partially owned by IBM and Google. Google? No. Let me think here. Is it Google? Yeah, Google. So Lenovo is partially owned by IBM and Google. So combined, I think they own 10% of Lenovo. So Google owned Motorola. So Google owned Motorola and then sold it to Lenovo. So those Motorola phones used to be, Google owned until they sold it to Lenovo in 2014, I believe. This is some, this information you may not know about. The same with KaiOS. So KaiOS used to be independent and was based on code from Firefox OS. Firefox, what's the name of the mobile for Firefox? So a Firefox OS for mobile. And then Firefox abandoned the project, and then KaiOS took it over, and then made it successful on cheap phones, and then Google invested in that. So they are safe. Which ones are we safe? Sorry, are we talking about the Lenovo's? Lenovo makes good computers. They pretty much what they did was take the technology from IBM on how they made computers. And so it's based on, what IBM was doing with computers at the time. And Lenovo was caught putting spyware on a particular model of a ThinkPad, if I recall. And it was like an ad spyware. And they were caught with it, and then they took it out. And that did not exist on, for example, the Lenovo I have. I have a Lenovo Yoga. So I have one Lenovo here. But I have a lot of Lenovo's because, of course, these phones, Motorola, this is a Moto G7. And, I have several Moto G7s here. And these are made by Lenovo. So, which Google still partially owns. Okay, so partially owned by Google. Partially. So IBM has 4 point something percent. Google owns 6 something percent of Lenovo. So if it froze, it should have recovered by now. Signal's okay. Does that mean Lenovo owners are zucked? No. Because your operating system is what really controls. Oh, okay. My video froze. Okay, hold on. Let me recover. Okay, so yeah, I lost internet again. I could see it. Lost internet again. So anyway, we only have 15 minutes left anyway. So sorry about that. Unstable internet here tonight. So when it comes to computers, it depends on who your threat is. If you're working for the 3-letter agency, you may want only U.S. branded computers with U.S. branded parts for, if you're trying to protect at the cybersecurity level. For normal people, it's really not much of a concern. I'm gonna that Lenovo X1 Carbon is a very nice looking computer. It's lightweight. I don't have one, but I believe I saw somebody with it, and it's really nice and light. So my suggestion is forget about the fears about computers, even if they're branded by a Chinese brand. Like, for example, my main computer is Chinese, but it's Taiwanese. It's MSI. MSI is Taiwan. So I don't worry about Taiwan. Taiwan is on our side. So my laptop is a Taiwanese brand. So for broadcasting I'm using an HP Spectre here, and this HP, but I don't know, it's probably made in China. It wouldn't surprise me if it's made in China. Where does Dell manufacture their computers? Do they still make them? They used to make them in Texas, but it's probably a lot of it's probably outsourced to China as well. So it's this is the world now. It's like that, and we keep complaining about China, but these multinationals are the one making that choice, and we're not given the choice. So the issue is for personal use. I don't even worry. One of the there's a little bit of fake news in here. For example, should you really be afraid of IME in Intel Management Engine on a Intel computer? For example, Purism, System 76, they push the fact that they do things to prevent IME from working, and what they do is not even certain. Thank you, Doster Group. Don't forget you mentioned showing what Google's up to video. That's for my next video. Next video on Thursday. But for home use, IME is not really a threat because you can't access a computer on a home network from the outside, because all of us use on NAT, N-A-T. So all of your routers at home has NAT in it. So it's the way we do internet from home. So basically it's, you're automatically firewalled. There's just no way to access your Intel computer unless someone is on the same network. So it's really a threat. Thank you, MAT. It's really a threat only in a corporate environment where you're all in the same network, and somebody in the office could then attack your computer from inside the office and use IME. So it's not really a threat for home. So considering the privacy battle, which is an even bigger one than the cybersecurity battle, regardless of what people tell you, it's actually not much of a risk to worry about IME and all that. Although, to be honest, many of the new consumer laptops don't even have IME enabled. So what about P2P? What about it? Is that, in what context? Dell was big employer in Austin, Texas in 1999. Yes. I back then I have a stack of Dell computers. I buy a computer every year. Would you recommend removing proprietary blobs of Pop OS Ubuntu to get a private laptop experience? No. I think it's fine. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Don't overreact to that, because it depends on who your threat is. So some of these threats are not meaningful from a privacy point of view. Okay, I only have 10 minutes left, but I'm going to go through this to make sure that I explain this, because some people are protecting against the wrong threat. If you work for a 3-letter agency, you have a different threat profile. Okay, so we say model your threat. Which threat are you modeling against? Are you modeling against Chinese cybersecurity attackers attacking you? In which case, then you're going to be zucked because that's a whole different level. If you're worried about protecting yourself from three-letter agencies, are you going to be able to do that? I'm going to tell you, no. You don't have a chance. You don't have a chance. Somebody will come to your house, put a what do you call it? Duck something. Insert it in your USB drive, and then basically put the malware, and then leave out the door, and then you're attacked. Okay? And they're not going to be able to take your phone because you're holding it. But your computer, they can go to your house when you're not home and go put in some malware in there, or put a spy device in your network or whatever, which is easily done. So if you're under active surveillance, you really have no chance. This has nothing to do with privacy. Okay? I mean, if that's your kind of threat, then you need to think about going off grid. So what I'm telling you is not going to protect you from that kind of threat. I mean, you have to really think seriously. If cybersecurity is your threat, you need to really stop using computers. No internet, no, everything is going to have to be isolated. That is not the world that I'm trying to defend against. So if that's a threat, it's a little different approach. So if the government is hunting you down, you better not use computers. You better not, not internet connected computers, and you better not use phones at all. If I were being hunted down by a three-letter agency, I'm going to use only one-time use, throwaway burner phones. Use once, throw away. Use once, throw away. That's what I would use. Okay? Only once. You can't use it twice. Okay, so that you see the difference in threat. So if it's different threat, then you don't really, don't confuse your threat, because who's attacking you? If you're important enough to be attacked by a three-letter agency, then look around you. It's somebody following you. It's somebody put a thing on your car. They can insert malware in your car and cause your car to crash. There are many things they can do, and then you're helpless. That is not the threat that I'm working with here, because that is not what I call mass surveillance. The threat that we're guarding against is called mass surveillance or mass profiling by private companies. That is what controls nations. That's what affects our freedom as a nation. Having a bad guy be tracked by the three-letter agency is of no concern to me, because why are you being tracked? Are you a criminal? So, I don't really worry about that, because I don't. I'm sure they checked me out. And, I'm pretty straight. I don't do anything. So, yeah, if they did active surveillance, they'll see, oh, he goes sailing. Oh, he has a nice boat. Oh, he plays piano. Okay. Yeah, I come in here and talk about all the stuff on YouTube, but I don't think you're going to find me doing any illegal activity, and I pay my taxes. Everything is on the up and up with me. So I don't really, I'm sure they checked me out, but nothing important that they're going to find to stop me. What I have to be afraid of is being deplatformed by Google, because they don't like what I'm talking about, especially if I'm saying something that is not friendly to Google at all. Now, I have to say that YouTube seems to be operating on its own. It doesn't seem to be towing the line as far as what Google's doing. So they're operating a little bit independently, and I hope that's the case, because meaning they're censoring you in a completely independent way based on what YouTube wants to censor you on. So I don't know if that's positive or negative, but it's kind of at least separate from what Google does. If you protest things, they watch you now and label you an extremist threat. Yeah, but you see, that's my goal, is to make sure that the uh, cohort that I belong to is so screwed up that their AI can't do it. Somebody has to manually classify me because I don't want the AI to classify me. Okay? So that's a difference. Somebody could manually classify me and saying, well, I watch his videos, this is really where he belongs. But I don't want the AI to do it. Okay? So you already asked me about Brave ads. I don't really have any opinion on Brave ads. Why are you worried about them? It's not Google. What can you do to stop them from showing your workplace, age, address, car model, underwear, etc.? Disinformation, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You feed them information that's in conflict. You use a de-Google phone. Basically, a de-Google phone will stop a lot of that already. And then as your data ages, then it's going to be less useful. I was by the way, just a side comment, and I was watching the news here in LA, and they were saying that 50% of Republicans, mostly those who supported Trump, don't want to get vaccinated. Is that true? Do I have an opinion on Tuxedo computers? That's recommended as a Linux computer by some people, yes. So, and people are wondering, and they start to make any statements about, why 50% of the Republicans apparently don't want to be vaccinated. And I think they're, to be honest, and I don't do politics, so my comments take my comments as a kind of like third-party observation, and I think that the at least the news reporters who were reporting this, I think I watched it on KCET, the PBS station, and because that's the only, I've limited TV. I was watching on my boat, and on my boat I have limited TV. So anyway, as I was listening to that, I start to understand that maybe they don't understand why a certain population, mostly the Republicans, are anti-vaccine, and it's not really as much anti-vaccine, I don't think, as much as it is anti-establishment. I think what's happening is just like in my channel here, we start to distrust the establishment entities, and that includes Google, Apple, Facebook, and government, and whatever anyone says on the news, we start to distrust. And I think that's really what it is. I mean, it's the way they were characterizing these Republicans were, hey, they're so dumb. They're Republican. They must be so dumb. They don't want to get vaccinated. They don't understand the root cause is actually distrust. Distrust. And if you understand, where we stand here with privacy, then you understand that there is reason for the distrust. So you gotta not label these people as being dumb because they don't want to be vaccinated. You have to understand the root cause of the anger. And I understand it. I mean, look at what I'm talking about in this channel. This channel is not about politics, but I understand the anti-establishment feeling because we're feeling like certain aspects of our lives are being manipulated, and what we see and hear are being controlled by whoever wants to control it, and we're enabling them to do it, and that's what we want to stop. Okay, so anyway, I just want to make sure that I say that. I use Ubuntu. They do a little spy tracking. I think it's benign. I wouldn't worry about it. Okay. Yes, they do a little bit of. They're trying to track their users. I've tracked it. I've seen it on. I see what they track. Every time you log into Ubuntu, they connect to Ubuntu.com. Yeah, but it's pretty limited. It's really just tracking how many people are logged in using Ubuntu. So that's not really the kind of threat I got to worry about. Okay. So anyway, thank you for watching, my friends. I will, on my next video, I'm gonna explain, the Google stuff a little bit more clearly. The connection between Fitbit and DOH, 23andMe, and KaiOS, and just so much going on. Okay, and thank you for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next week. And appreciate you watching my channel. So come over to Brax.me and chat with all the people on there who are all privacy focused. Good night, guys. See you later.